remember the first one, the time because the first comes after.
Yeah.
After the song.
All right, you can fade out the song now and play it.
Do the song now?
Mm-hmm. You could fade out and play the prayer.
No, you could fade it.
In our fight to save our environment and save it. Save it.
That's it. Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions
When we can see God reflected in all that exists, our hearts are moved to praise the Lord for all His creatures and to worship Him in union with them. This sentiment finds magnificent expression in the hymn of St. Francis of Assisi. Praised be you, my Lord, with all, especially Sir Brother's Son, who is the day and through whom you give us life. And he is beautiful and radiant with great splendor, and bears. Praise be you, my Lord, through sister moon and the stars. In heaven you formed them clear and precious and beautiful. Praise be you, my Lord, through brother wind, and through the air, cloudy and serene, and every kind of weather through whom you give sustenance to your creatures. Praise be you, my Lord, through sister water, who is very useful and humble and precious and chaste. Praise be you, my Lord, through brother fire, through whom you light the night, and he is beautiful and playful and robust and strong.
All right.
Good afternoon and welcome to Voice of the Bays, The Environment Speaks. I am your co-host, Joseph John Lyle Kathleen Bell from Long Island. And my main man is Javan Hunt.
Woohoo!
And I don't know, I'm in trepidation this afternoon because I'm in the midst of so many learned people, University of the Bahamas staff and student. And of course, Javan is going to introduce them right now. We have an extremely interesting and timely topic this afternoon, and I can't wait to listen to these auspicious, young, and not so young. We have fun on this show, so just be ready to laugh among all the good things we do and say.
All right. Good afternoon, Bahamas. We back, and our topic today is the blue economy boom, how marine science is shaping the Bahamas' future. And our guest today, we have some really amazing guests from the University of the Bahamas. We have Dr. Anselino Davis. He's the Assistant Professor of Environmental Science and Sustainability. We have Dr. Matthias Johansson. Did I say your name? Mm-hmm. All right, Johansson, Assistant Professor, Marine Biology, Small Islands Sustainability, University of the Bahamas. And of course, we have our very own UB student, Soné Seymour. She's waving at the camera. And she's majoring in marine science with a minor in sustainability. I know all of these titles seem long and is a mouthful, but trust me, this is a great show, and we want to bring to you what the university is offering. We want to inspire these young minds. We want to inspire you all to think, when you think science, when you think of the future of the Bahamas, we want you to think of University of the Bahamas. So welcome to our guests.
Thank you very much.
We want you to talk in the microphone. Don't be scared.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, we happy to have you. So first off, let's just talk about the University of the Bahamas. What's happening over there at the university? Anyone?
Well, right now, I think some of the exciting stuff that's happening is the University of the Bahamas North is getting a new building. So after 4 years after Hurricane Dorian, now there's a lot of really good movement. We're gonna get to have our first looks inside the building that's being renovated next week, and we should have people moving in there and conducting classes before the next semester. So that's really exciting for us here. And there's the one university movement, so that we want to make sure that every student at the University of the Bahamas, no matter what island you're on, have the same success rates, right? And that's big for me. That's really important.
That's big for all of us. Like,
Yeah.
for those of you on island, you would have seen how the campus was destroyed by Hurricane Dorian. We would have seen how, you know, a lot of our students were displaced. They didn't have anywhere to go. So it's really hard to see that the building is coming back and that classes, everyone will be under the same roof. That's what you're saying, right? Everybody will be under the same roof.
For the most part, we'll have some other locations as well on island, like the field station on the other side of the bridge where the campus used to be. There will still be a lot of environmental science stuff going
Happening
on over there. So that's important to acknowledge as well. But having the majority of the classes and student support services, faculty support services, and a community space where the greater Freeport community and Grand Bahama community could interact with us as UB. I think that's really important.
Awesome.
Matt, we hear a lot now about blue economy. And a lot of people don't know what it's all about. They don't know whether or not we're, studying the clouds or the blue industry. Could you give us a brief summary of blue economy and what role significantly it plays in our atmosphere or in our islands or in our ocean?
Well, it really... Let's switch mics here because that mic's not working. Essentially, to tie the economy into what happens naturally in the ocean, tying the economy into making money while protecting the ocean as well. So it's kind of, how can we develop businesses that are sort of climate sensitive, that are going to provide jobs, living wage jobs for Bahamians and for, other ocean-facing communities, other island communities. So a lot of it is thinking creatively about, how can we leverage this amazing thing that we really, in the Bahamas, have only ever leveraged for tourism. We think about it as the waters are amazing, people fly in here because our waters are beautiful, but what else is there? Can we develop industries that, might have a global reach that leverage what we have in the oceans? And there's a lot of creative people thinking about that, and we want to, reach out and communicate with the community because so many of our students don't even know that these sorts of jobs exist. We have lots of partners. We have, lots of students come in interested in science, but they really don't know what direction to go in. And so a lot of what we need to be doing is kind of that outreach piece and teaching people about, what jobs exist and what industries exist. And it's not just you want to study sharks. I mean, a lot of our students come in and that's exactly what they want to do. But it really is, you can develop a business that, captures carbon using the acres and acres of ocean that exist in the Bahamas by, replanting mangroves or replanting seagrasses and using that to reach out into the global economy. Delta Airlines wants to help you do that, in theory, at least. They have all these initiatives of carbon capture. And so how can we make sure we have the trained people, we have the infrastructure that we can actually, do these projects, we can plant these mangroves, but we can also measure how much carbon is being captured because the mangroves are growing. We put them in the ground and they grow and they survive, and we need to be tracking all that sort of thing, and that requires training and that requires boots on the ground as well. And so those could be jobs.
Okay, Thank you very much. Dr. Denavapo, you've been involved very assertively in all aspects of our environment for a very long time. And I think I myself, as an environmentalist, born one, probably not educated one, but I was born in the mud, and I grew up in the mud. I fished in the mud, I dove in the mud, I put my hands into the coral reefs without glasses, without goggles, to pull out stuff. So some of us got an inborn sensitivity to everything to do with Mother Earth and the environment. But when you look at us as a nation, we really focus on what is happening in light of how we're going to utilize all that is left for us, for example, like the ocean, like Doc said there, or are we just come floating along and probably going off and touting the fact that, you know, we're subjected to all this climate change and we need a lot of money, but what are we doing home here? How do you sensitize not just the ordinary people and not even the students in the university, but the people in parliament, the people who run the country? How are we going to sensitize them that this is an urgent matter and what needs to be done in order to secure as safe as possibly what we have remain right now? That's a long thing, but I know you could analyze it.
All right, Joe. So I think definitely we have a lot of the conversation going already, right? Our Prime Minister has been around the world speaking on how much the Bahamas has been impacted by climate change, how much value we have in our seagrasses. But then at the same time, those conversations, a lot of them are focused on the money. They're focused on these financial potentials that really rely on some legislation that most Bahamians don't understand. It relies on an economic process that's driven from outside the Bahamas, and it often relies on science that is not driven by local people conducting the science. So what we have now is a Bahamas, a country that's still using our natural resources as a form of tourism or offshore banking, right? And what we're discussing now is how do you get Bahamians to recognize and acknowledge what we have in our country and not to evaluate it based on someone else's value system and standards, but on our value systems and standards. Because yeah, it's cool to say that seagrass can capture a certain amount of carbon, and that some business or country on the other side of the world could pay us millions of dollars for that. But it's another thing to be in the midst of Hurricane Dorian and trying to find where your family or your friends are to see if they survive this next climate-powered storm, right? So those are two different value propositions that we have to think about. And only by training local Bahamians like Soné here can you get them to have that perspective. And when they walk into Parliament, when Soné is our Minister of Environment or something like that, she'll be able to describe that and say, you know, this legislation you're all trying to push, that money legislation doesn't mean anything when people are suffering, when we don't have fish on the coral reefs, or when our coastlines are being eroded, or when we don't have the forest resources that people go out and collect to make their bush medicine or to weave their thatch. People used to actually weave those fish pots, right? And now you go and purchase those metal fish pots. We don't mine for aluminum or anything in the Bahamas, right? So we need to bring our perspective back in reign and like hold it within our sovereignty. And I think education is the first place for us to own our domain. Once you own your mind, then you could own everything else.
Okay.
Perspective.
Magnificently put. Soné, you're a young, beautiful lady. And not only will you become the Minister of the Environment in the future, but you may become Prime Minister. Maybe even the first Prime... We haven't had a woman Prime Minister yet?
We had, she was acting Prime Minister for a while. I can't remember.
Well, all of them will have something. But we want a purposeful, stabilized one. There are many things that are going on right now. We have the Prime Minister, of course, he goes all over the world touting the fact that we are subjected phenomenally to the effect of climate change, sea level rise, and all of that. In fact, there's one place right here in Grand Bahama we've been doing elevation and so forth measuring. They're coming up. We were told by some people from France some years ago that in that particular spot, we will lose about 9 feet by the year 2030. We measure now a coconut tree that was way up on the sandbank, about 35 feet from the water, and probably there's only like 5 feet now before the water slushes up under that tree to fall over. How serious are young people today about examining what is going on in the environment and be able to voice their concerns? Because going abroad and saying, all of this is happening to the Bahamas, we're not getting any money yet. As far as, we're worth something like billions of dollars because it's a question of carbon, our mangroves, and and with our coral zoo, and then the sea, not the seaweed, but sea grasses.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
How do you feel about the attitude of young people today in order to bring them into the fold? Because you're going to be here. I'm going to be long gone. You're going to live this. I might be gone long before, we're without land. Right now, we have very little land above sea level. So, how do you feel about this phenomenon that's surrounding you right now as a young science person?
Well, I honestly feel as though my generation of Bahamians are their eyes are more open to what's going on around in their country, specifically about how tourists come to the country and how the government is, I want to say, ruling the country. I apologize. But
Okay.
I do think that this generation especially is more hands-on. In my graduating class especially, we had more people going out and getting environmental degrees than doctors and lawyers because they want to come back and they want to help their country. They might not have come to UB, but they went abroad. They do plan on coming back to help their country. Unfortunately, we do have to wait for some people to step down. I'm going to use that word. I'm going to use that phrase, step down, before we can make changes. But it's small steps. We make it small steps.
Mm-hmm. Specifically, when you look around, not just Grand Bahama or not even Nassau, but the other islands, do you see any sort of passion or urgency in the minds and the work of the people in order to be able to secure what we have for future generations in terms of climate change, sea level rise? Now that might be a difficult thing for you to do, but if I would just look at it here, you mentioned about your young people that they're more attuned to maybe what's happening, but do you think it should be more dynamically passed on to them now in the grade schools, in the junior high and senior high and in university? Because these are the ones going to be subjected. We're going to lose a lot of our land in the next 50 or 60 years. So what should we be teaching our children right now? Fundamentally, basic.
Fundamentally, I feel like more sustainability needs to be put in place. More educational sustainability.
No, just relax. Don't
I'm not
worry
really
about
good at speaking,
it.
but
You're good. Yeah.
But specifically, I want to say that growing up, I learned especially about what mangroves do and why they're put in place. So I know that it's being taught in schools. I just know that there is a learning curve for some people. So I feel like we need to revamp our model, basically, change with the tides.
Yeah. Okay.
Change with the tides. So how everything is being digitalized and the use of artificial intelligence, we can use that to educate the younger generation.
Yeah,
Okay,
I just want to jump in here just for a second,
Yeah, go
and something comes to mind. When we work extensively with a lot of younger folks, we meet a lot of primary school students, and I could definitely say in the past, having spoken to younger kids, the vast majority wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, judge, these type of professions. And nowadays, with the work that we do with our youth programs, I'm seeing Dr. Angelino with his Science and Perspective. I'm seeing Dr. Matthias just constantly driving that message that science is cool. Like, we need this. So I'm seeing, actually, you're cool, you know what I mean? So I'm seeing y'all doing the work. And I'm seeing the attitudes and the behaviors shift and change. So we definitely seeing it. To answer your question too, we definitely have to start young, showing our children and the younger generation respect for the environment. So not throwing stuff out your window. You know what I mean? Like just last week we did a beach cleanup, and I'm ashamed to say that my beach won for the dirtiest beach. You know, we collected 560 pounds of just trash that was on Xanadu Beach. So let's start there. You know, let's start with basic stuff. Like a lot of your, people listening, your grandparents, your parents know a lot about bush medicine. So learn about what the name of the bush and what it does. You know, when you get sick, sometimes your parents will say, boy, go pick some Sarasi or Bejarina. And that's how it starts to sink in their head that your environment matter. Like, you know, at no point do you have to go outside and y'all watch your phone. Don't say like, you have used 2 minutes of air. You're getting charged $5 for 2 minutes of air. You know what I mean? Like, you're not charged for it. You know, but we take it for granted. You walk outside, and outside becomes just a medium to get to your car, get to church, get to work, get places, but you don't really respect that. So let's start with respecting the environment in that way. That leads me to a question for, my guests. Now that we, say what's needed, what is UB doing with the new program to help bring more students in? Like how are we going to get more students loving the marine sciences and really wanting to go to UB to learn more about all of these acres and acres and acres of ocean that we have here?
Well, I mean, fundamentally, what we're doing is what we're doing right now. We're reaching out and we're communicating. What we have not done particularly well, particularly unfortunately here on Grand Bahama, with the loss of our campus, UB has kind of lost any sort of visibility. People are kind of aware that we've existed. I mean, the campus was destroyed 5 years ago. 5 years ago this month.
Jeez, 5 years already?
Yeah, amazing, huh? 5 years ago this month. And since then, we've essentially had little or no visibility. And our marine science program, likewise, kind of went fallow a few years ago and essentially is also invisible as a part of UB. So the biggest thing that we're doing as a department, the Department of Small Island Sustainability or Small Island Studies, depends on who you ask. It's part of the problem right there. We are making sure that we're out, we're engaged with all these community partners.
Yeah.
We come out and we do mangrove plantings and we partner with you guys for class opportunities sometimes. And we take students to Bimini and we take students to Abaco, and we dragged Sone along to a conference in Nassau once, which she impressed a bunch of people there, which is why she's along for this adventure too.
Yeah.
So, we're doing a lot of connecting with partners and with, people in the community. But what we're trying to do much more of is this sort of outreach.
Yeah.
We're going to start getting into the local schools. And UB North has a really cool opportunity to be really the family island campus of UB. Because Nassau has plenty of people, they have plenty of students of their own, and you guys know as well as I do, they may not be aware that this is an archipelago. They may think that the Bahamas is an island. It's an interesting island to visit. They've got good restaurants and loads of folks, but it is an archipelago country, and so we can really be the campus that takes care of the other islands, the non-New Providence parts of the country, which is a lot of the country, clearly.
Dr. Mike, before I just go out of my head, I'm not the memory like you guys, almost 83, so I can excuse myself for interrupting. But what you said, in fact, I had meant to ask you a particular question. How long have you been here in the Bahamas?
Since November 1st of 2021. I started the job August 1st, but I didn't
2021.
I moved in November.
So about 4 or 5 years.
4 years.
4 years. And I'm going to be thrown out of the country tomorrow. But tell us honestly, what have you observed? Because you're the one of among few who actually have been coming out and helping the rejuvenation of our mangroves and other aspects of the shorelines, etc. What's wrong with our people that they cannot see what's going to happen, and to come out like you and do what this man does all over the country, not just bothering with the things on the earth, but he bothers with the things that fly. I admire him. He's a man of my heart. Why can't we get more substantial Bahamians involved in this regard? Naaman should answer that, but you answer it, and you wouldn't be thrown out of the country tomorrow. I'll see with that.
Let's see if I can.
Say that's it.
Yeah. Let me see you wordsmith this one.
I think I can do that, to be honest. I think the biggest problem, and this is not unique to the Bahamas, but this is, I think, a small island problem in a lot of ways. People you deal with the fires that are closest to you before you can put out fires at a distance, right? So on small islands, people are dealing with their immediate concerns. Unemployment is perhaps higher than it would ideally be. Jobs are maybe not as well paid as they should be, and maybe not as abundant. And so the sort of immediate need for repairing damage from constant hurricanes, or paying the rent this month and making sure you got a little left over for the grocery store, I think those are really fundamental problems to overcome. People, there's the sort of hierarchy of needs, right? And I can't ever remember the steps, but people have to take care of their more basic needs before they can take care of more complex or advanced needs. The problem that sort of the entire nation deals with as a result of that is that it's very hard to plan for a future that's more than months out, or for some people, really the next rent payment out type. So what ends up happening is that people realize, we can't be fishing these conch this hard. We can't be bulldozing all these mangroves in order to put up hotels. But I need a job now because the landlord's asking me for money come the first of the month. Mm-hmm. Where, because people have immediate needs that are sort of almost at the emergency level to deal with, they have to deal with those first, and worrying about the conch isn't a priority. They've got to catch whatever conch they can to sell them in order to, make some money to feed their family or whatever it happens to be, right? So they catch juveniles because that's what's available, because the little boat they got won't go way offshore because, they can't afford a bigger motor, or the boat's a little ropey, or whatever it is. So you kind of, the tragedy is this, we've got to deal with today's problem before we can worry about tomorrow's. And tomorrow's problems are the ones that you're talking about.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very honestly stated. You want to add to that then?
You want to go first, Sonia?
No, you can go first.
So
don't worry, I'm not leaving her out.
For me, I think a big part of it is that for the Bahamians that I'm familiar with, we've inherited a very colonial mindset.
Amen. Amen.
And so we have inherited a mindset where we can't own the country, right? The British government, they sold all the pine trees before they gave us independence, right?
You see that?
And all the hotels are owned by a foreign entity or organization until the hurricane hits, and then the skeleton of the hotel stays here.
Like what you're looking at through the window.
Yeah, I'm looking at the hotel right now, right? At the two hotels.
Yeah.
And we as Bahamians are not trained and taught that. And so even yesterday, my biology 109 students, these are biology for non-science major students. So I traumatize them every day by telling them which fruit trees are not Bahamian. I tell them, or I bring snakes or a dog into the class, and Bahamian students, they're not ready to accept that this is our native cockroach, right?
You didn't bring a roach in the class, you did?
I have. But we have some cockroaches that worldwide cockroaches, but we have some Bahamian cockroaches, and we can appreciate that. you have people that have come from around the world to see our snakes and our cockroaches, to steal our snakes and lizards.
Things
and
that we would kill.
Right, and then you throwing salt on the paw frog. Right? So now, this lack of appreciation, we've inherited a lot of it.
Uh-huh.
So now, I take pride in being that person when I walk into a room and you guys refer to me as Dr. Lino or Dr. Davis.
Uh-huh.
Because most Bahamian students, when they see me wearing this hat, they're like, "Oh, you're a farmer," right? Their mind doesn't go to being a field biologist or a scientist, right?
Yeah.
I honestly go to Diego, but
Yeah. And then sometimes I would walk into a space and the people are expecting a Dr. Davis, but not a Bahamian Dr. Davis.
No.
So when they reach out their hand and shake this, now we're changing that. And I think that's a really powerful thing that's going on now. If you look in the environment, we have leaders. Dr. Krista Sherman is one of the lead scientists at Perry Institute for Marine Science. You have the leadership of the Nature Conservancy in the Caribbean is Bahamian. You have Lakeisha Anderson Roll, who is the executive director of the Bahamas National Trust, following after Eric Carey, another Bahamian. But Lakeisha is from Grand Bahama, right? You have so much powerful leadership in the environment now in the Bahamas that is making its mark on the world.
Yeah.
I think that's really super special for us to have that change in our environment. But when it comes down to why we can't get more Bahamians out, most of them don't have someone who could step back and say, "You know what? I scared of snakes, Dr. Davis. Don't bring the snake to my teacher's desk, but let the children touch it." Right? And I appreciate my teachers, Sunline Christian Academy. Shout out to y'all for letting me let all y'all little hands touch the snake that I brought from the DNT. We borrowed article the other day. But this type of inspiration, we need more of.
Yeah.
And we got to go from primary school to
Straight
high
up.
school.
That's right.
Straight up. And we have a program that's coming to Grand Bahama this year.
Yeah.
It is conservation leadership through Bahamians, Birds and Botany.
Yeah.
And this is what we're talking about inspiring these new leaders, and they don't have to be in the bush or in the ocean like us all the time. But as conservation leaders, you could be leading carnival cruises to say, "Don't mess up this beach. You don't have to bring in royal palms and coconut trees. This is what the Bahamas looks like. Leave it like that."
Yeah.
Right? And so this is what we're going for now.
So a few points. Representation does matter. So seeing you in that field is really great for, young Bahamians to see other Bahamians in these positions. Also, I just wanna say if this panel right now were to see in the future 5-10 years, with the new marine science program and with all that we're saying about reaching students on a good day, in a perfect world, what would it look like 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now?
Professor Sonny.
Definitely. There are plans in the making for
Come
me
closer.
to go. Oh, sorry. There are plans in the making for me to possibly get my master's and then to get my PhD in what specific field. I have ideas, but that's neither here nor there. But I do agree that representation does matter. It's when I was growing up, the only things that were brought to work fairs or like job fairs were people in offices and cubicles. I knew from a really long time
That you
I
were
didn't
supposed to
know
be in a
what to
cubicle,
work.
right?
I did not want to work in a cubicle. And I didn't want to be a lawyer, and I was too squeamish to be a doctor. You would think that, and now I'm like elbow deep in biofoul every day, but we're not going to talk about that.
Biofoul. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotta write that one down.
Right? But representation does matter, because when I was younger, I genuinely did not know what I wanted to do. I stumbled headfirst into marine science. I'm not mad, But it was a
We are happy that you stumbled into that.
I'm happy too.
Yeah.
Like last year, I did not know how to swim.
What?
I did not know how to swim, and now
I hope you're all listening to this public, because a lot of Bahamians don't know how to swim.
which is also very bad now that I think about it. I was pushing 20, did not know how to swim, and now I know how to swim. But I feel like it's a lot of fear that comes with the water for Bahamians, and I feel like it has to do with colonialist times. I'm gonna use that.
Yeah, okay.
They don't like the ocean. The ocean is a place of fear for them, and as a result, fear. It's a generational curse. So I was brought up. My mommy would be like, "Oh, don't go in the shallow. I can't swim, so I can't save you." So I always had a fear, like, what in the water if my mommy, who's supposed to be super strong, can't come and save me? So I stayed in the shallow.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was like, "Oh yeah, this is mandatory for your degree," that I was in like the water, floating around.
And realizing it wasn't nothing to fear.
Nothing to fear. If anything, the water, as a Bahamian, I feel more connected with my islands now. Now that I am studying marine biology and I'm studying sustainability and environmental science, I feel like even if you don't study marine biology, you should. It's a really great thing. But even if you don't study marine biology, you should learn to connect with your environment, even if it's not the ocean, even if it's a mangrove swamp, or literally
Corals
just
or
the
something.
pine forest.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I would second that, and I'm sure everyone here would third and fourth. But no matter what career choice you have, we want to encourage Bahamians everywhere to have a respect for the environment. Even if you're scared to swim, even if you don't want get a Bahamian roach. And I'm sure a lot of you must have something to say about that. So call in 602-1033, 602-1033. We having a great conversation, and we bringing up some great points, like why a lot of us can't swim. Not us, Bahamians. Don't like the water, can't swim, and we islands, we surrounded by water, so you should know how to swim. If Mr. Davil were to start talking about his life and times growing up in Long Island, it was almost like everybody could swim. You going out, you have to dive for you have to eat. And a great part of our food is coming from not just the forests and from farming, but from fishing. But anything you want to add to that, Uncle Joe?
Yeah, I want to get back at Sonia, because you said something kind of frightened me, that you're going to go all the way up to your doctorate degree. Mm-hmm. Now, during that whole period of time, there's going to be a whole lot of mess going on in the country environmentally. So what impact are you going to have if you're off in the United States getting your doctorate degree? Are you going to stay connected to what's happening in your country? Because that's very, very important. Now, you're a young person, very young. And we see now whenever we have a cleanup, like Javan mentioned out at the hotel?
Xanadu Beach.
Xanadu.
Mm-hmm.
We had children as young as 7 years old out there, and they're learning the preciousness of keeping the environment clean.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's only happened because we have people who are basically environmentally conscious, and they know how to keep these islands clean and pristine. But we can't lose you for such a long time. So what are you going to leave here of your legacy? Are you going to teach enough young people before you go away to do the work that you know you should do and they should do?
Can I jump in? I gotta jump in. So as a Bahamian who's gone through English-speaking North American academia,
Mm-hmm.
it ain't easy for a person of color to be in that space, to be successful in that space. But they have a team behind them. So one, we ain't gonna let you go that easy.
Yeah.
Right? Two, all the support that we're gonna be giving Sonia, it's not gonna be like when I went off to school, right? And I couldn't get anyone to email me back to respond to a message to say, yes, you could use this data. Or yes, come back home and go diving with us or something like that. That's why I ended up doing all of my my PhD work using freely available online open source data. But now my commitment is that a Bahamian student should not have to leave the Bahamas to study the Bahamas. We actually have partners.
Say
now.
it again, please. Say it again.
A Bahamian student should not have to leave the Bahamas to study the Bahamas. And too often, like Sonny said earlier, you have students who graduate from their high school and they say, oh, I want to study marine biology. I want to study atmospheric conditions in the tropics and the Caribbean. And they're like, we don't really offer that. There's so many ways that we can integrate partners, all the different research that's going on in the Bahamas, and to deliver on these. And I can be kind of rough with my words sometimes, but I looked around at that big meeting that Sunday was in, and I said, y'all gonna die. It's a bunch of old people in the environmental field, in the research field, and they're dying, like literally over these past 5 to 10 years. The amount of colleagues that I have seen pass away and not have their Bahamian work continue, who were not Bahamian, it's a tragedy. It's a travesty. And so now for me being here as a Bahamian, my students will tell you, like, I drag them on all kinds of adventures and I push them to do this, and I'm always asking them every time they sit down with me for 2 minutes, you trying to get on master's degree, you trying to get on PhD, and just pushing them. But we're gonna support them. Sunday is gonna go as far as she wants to go with our support, but she will not be able to pull that last route out of the Bahamas. And that's our commitment to her. And you, as long as you here on the show, you could be one of those people holding that route, right?
Yeah.
So that's how it's gonna be, right? And for all, and it's not just Sunday.
No.
We have an amazing group of students, and Dr. Matthias, he takes students on all kinds of wacky adventures.
You can
Right.
announce this out there.
Yeah.
I love a wacky.
What's going on? What's our next recruitment thing?
Well, I actually know that he's listening in because he sent me a text, but our good friend Keith Cooper from West End Ecology Tours is taking a few students out. He's interested in furthering what he's doing and making sure that it too continues into the next generation. So he's taking us out on the boat, assuming the weather cooperates, which I'm not sure it will. But we'll go out and we'll see some stingrays and we'll experience what he's doing. And he is, to me, really the kind of entrepreneur that we want more of on this island in this country, because he's basically built his own little pipeline that brings money in from outside the Bahamas to a company that it's owned by Bahamians. I mean, it's owned by Keith Cooper, sole proprietor, right?
I thought you were talking.
Yeah. So he
Blue economy, right?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
caters
Blue
to tourists in a way that is very respectful of the environment, and he just has an amazing relationship with where he takes his clients and the animals that they interact with. And it is clearly environmentally really respectful, and it's a beautiful experience, like a life-changing experience for these folks. And this is the kind of thing that more Bahamians could be going out with him. I'm taking some kids out tomorrow. But also, they could be doing those sorts of jobs and owning those sorts of businesses. And the other thing I wanted to mention with following up what Dr. Lino was saying is that, one of our visions at the University of the Bahamas is that we want to have graduate programs. We actually have a master's by research that exists now. It's a little bit unclear how we're going to deploy it because it's not specific to our department, but our goal is to have a master's that is specific to small island sustainability. And, maybe eventually I'm arguing, and my colleague Kelly Kingan, who's new to the university, she's arguing also that we should just have a PhD program as well.
Yes.
Because we have a bunch of partners who want to be doing research in the Bahamas and are having a tough time with that. We're doing cool stuff with the Shed Aquarium. We're doing really cool stuff with Bimini Biological Field Station Foundation, Shark Lab, as they're known. We have a relationship with the Bahamas Marine Mammal Research Organization. And so we have people who could help us to advise students and who could help us to design projects and who could offer essentially, the tools and the skills that we don't necessarily have. I love marine mammals, but I've never done any research on them. And that would be a way to continue the work that those organizations are doing with in-country experts, with students who are... The challenge of sending students off, even if you keep that one route, it might be that route is Junkanoo and their Grammy. So they come back. They come back in December and they hug their grandmother, and then they go to Junkanoo, and then they go back to their life in Austin, Texas, or whatever it is. So if we don't send them off at all, then we have a better chance of keeping them, and we have some amazing partnerships, and we can build these amazing opportunities. And I mean, obviously, we're hoping that we can find funding partners as well for these things. So if anybody rich is listening,
Please, Sonia, you wanted to add some stuff? Or?
Shout out to Grammy.
I'm gonna shut up my Grammy. Hi, okay, but I do plan on coming back. I've had several people tell me certain things. One is that you cannot learn from the same source. So you have to switch it up. So I do plan on I'm gonna do what they do to us. Use our resources and then go back to their country. So I'm gonna do the same thing but in reverse. And then I was told that somebody told me once that Grand Bahama is like draining or like it's dying. And I can see why people think that, but at the same time, Grand Bahama is also on the up and up again. Growth isn't linear in terms of anything, regardless of time.
That sounded so scientific just now.
Good job, yo. Good job. Good job.
teaching or something.
Thank you. Growth isn't linear in terms of like human growth or like economic growth either. So the fact that we having a downward shift right now is fine because at the end of the day, you only could go so far before you go back up. Yes, Grand Bahama is boring. I'm not going to
To your age.
It is boring. It is boring. But
I'm boring.
but that's because people don't know where to look. Every business opportunity that has been brought to Grand Bahama has usually been either some form of alcohol or some hotel. And I don't know if y'all realize, but if we have a hotel on every corner and a bar on the side of it, we ain't gonna have no more space to think.
Okay.
But I do plan on coming back.
Okay,
This is my island.
I wanted to mention
Microphone.
something before we lose time.
Yeah.
Because it's going on so good. One of you mentioned, if I'm not going to say it wrong, but the impression I got that the relocation and the restoration of University of Bahamas was a deplorable situation. And I totally, whether you think that or not, I totally agree. Because the amount of money should have been put aside to build a beautiful campus within 2 or 3 years. Because that is the highest level of education within the country. University of the Bahamas in Nassau, University of the Bahamas here on Grand Bahama. So it is, and I say publicly, it's a despicable mark on this country that we did not do more for the restoration of the University of the Bahamas on the island of Grand Bahama. Now you can't do nothing to me by saying that. The other thing I wanted to ask you all, I am, and I hope a lot of parliamentarians are listening, I am literally disappointed in so many of them because they set up in Parliament like they're God's Almighty. And then when they finish Parliament, we don't hear anything more from them. So what is their commitment to the building and the growth of this country, particularly in view of climate change, the blue economy that we need? Who's speaking out on that? The Minister of the Environment is a good guy, I know him, and he promised to come over to see me many times. You better come, because I'm giving up hope. But the fact is that we need to see these parliamentarians more involved in this whole phenomenon. We just can't wait for the good Prime Minister to go away begging for money in light of climate change, sea level rise, etc. We need more than that. We need these parliamentarians out in these communities on Grand Bahama and all the family islands doing their job. I mean, when I was growing up, on Long Island, a little boy, we had the oligarchy running the country, and they were all white people who directed the government. But yet, they came to Long Island, and they met with us. They saw us regularly. And in fact, my first job I received that at age 14 by a parliamentarian who represented Long Island. So I want to call out these parliamentarians. Get your backsides out of the parliament. Do something in these communities and pay attention to what is happening and not allow things like what's happening in Bimini, where 1,000 acres of prime miners were destroyed in light, and because the guy said they served no purpose, and they built all of these second homes that second home owners have for about 2 months of the year, destroyed or drove out all of the sea life from up in that area.
Yeah.
So we got to stop that foolishness in this country. Come on, get to love your country. I admire the wife of the Prime Minister, because whenever we have something big and glorious here about the environment, she's always there, always there. And I love her because of that. Thank you, Madam.
And she's also about planting trees too, and you know.
Yeah, plant trees and all of that. Yeah, good. The night off my chest. Eunice, Bahamas, come alive.
I think to bring a little bit of balance to a big part of this is that many of those politicians will never be on the side of local people because they don't experience the local issues. And so you have a number of parliamentarians with, they were arguing about how COVID ain't real and stuff like that until they caught COVID, and then they sit small. Then you have a lot of parliamentarians who were not necessarily voting along those lines of supporting environmental protection, developing new environmental laws, until they're inside their house being flooded out during Hurricane Dorian, right? And when you're talking about the recovery of UB North on Grand Bahama, and we're talking about how long those processes take, most of our politicians are not dealing with their family not being able to recover their health insurance or their life insurance from their loved ones whose bodies were lost. And so the insurance company says, you cannot claim on this insurance because we don't know if that person's dead yet. And you can't claim for another 10 years. But during that 10 years, if you stop paying this insurance, you are not going to get that insurance. And the politicians who are not experiencing that directly, they're not gonna be responding on that level for us. And when you have politicians who get to go and rub elbows and eat these fancy meals with other people, but they're not relying on that next fish they pull out of the ocean, it doesn't matter to them what the ocean looks like, because they're thinking about the big boat that they're on, eating that fancy fish that came from somewhere else. And so when we're recruiting students, we're recruiting them from around the corner. We're showing them that they can get this education about their environment. And I'm also telling my students, I don't want to be inside Parliament. But if that's what you're into, you could take some of this environment with you to Parliament, right? And so I think also a big part of the recruitment that I do is taking anyone who has, 30 minutes outside, touch grass, right? See what a poison would look like. Right.
Don't touch that.
Don't touch that. You touch the grass, not the poison. But all of my students, they're amazed that right outside the TCU classroom, I can show them 50 different species.
And medicinal ones included.
Yeah, some medicinal and some deadly, right?
Some deadly,
yeah, and they're fascinated. But most of our politicians never did that.
No.
They never did that at all, right? And so we have to change that as well. And some of it is recruiting, not just the students, but like Dr. Matt said just now, the funders, right? And the politicians who are supporting the UB North activities. And I'd invite all of them to come over here and do a tour of the new campus and the field station and to see our students, but actually stay and talk to the students, not just the administrators.
So we have about 5 more minutes of the show. Time really flies.
Oh, man.
But go ahead.
Bush medicine came up, you shouldn't drink all the stuff out of there. But that is a phenomenal thing, because in our Youth Environment Ambassador program and in our cadets, we take them all through all of these medicinal plants in the Bahamas. And one thing I wanted to mention is that phenomenal fruit, the breadfruit. It is the most powerful thing for elevated blood pressure. either eating the fruit, or drinking the hot, warm water from the leaves and adding a little bit of the stem. I just supplied both of those to someone recently whose blood pressure was 190 something or 170. And within 1 week using that, all of these fantastic things you have. And in our environmental program, we teach our children all about those medicinal plants that we have. Every medicine that we need actually is right there. You know, I mean, my garden, I never did it except the fruit trees, but right there I have about 12 different plants that could be used for medicinal purposes. So go out and study all of this magnificent panorama of trees and beauty that Mother Nature has given to you, and use that for all of these things without any after effects. So breadfruit, the fruit itself, and the leaves.
Yeah.
Boil the leaves just a minute, bring it to a rapid boil. Any high blood pressure, do it. Get some breadfruit leaves, boil them rapidly for about 2 minutes, lower the fire, and then take it off and let it simmer for let it cool down before you drink it. And you got hypertension, it's going like that. Natural medicine.
Natural medicine. For my last words, because we have about 3 minutes left, I really want to speak to parents. I want to speak to persons who just might not have thought about encouraging their children to pursue a career, a future in environmental sciences, especially marine science, we'll be talking about today. We've been discouraged saying that, oh no, don't swim. You've been saying like, no, kill that roach, kill that snake, throw salt on that frog. Like we've been discussing today, outside is a whole different world when you look. When you really stop to really walk outside, it's a whole different world out there. And a lot of times we miss it because we rush in to get someplace, and we don't see the value in what we have. And so you throw it away or just push it to the side and feel like everything is better. So, instead of getting bush medicine, you get prescription. Nothing against it. But, a lot of our ancestry, we had to do that. And, they live longer. I don't know. But I just want to speak to all of you to consider a future for your children there in the environmental sciences. We want you to reach out to, the persons on our panel. If you go on social media, in fact, I want you all to tell me what's the best way for a person to get in contact with you, with UB, to get more information on the programs you offer.
I think the University of the Bahamas is really well represented throughout social media. So definitely you can go online on social media, but also just the website ub.edu.bs is a good way to find the general contact information. If you can spell my name, you can find me, ANCILLENO, Davis, and if you Google that, I'm super easy to find. And then I own the Science and Perspective brand, where I do my type of environmental education. So Science and Perspective, or searching my name, is really easy to find me.
Well, I think Dr. Lino and I can probably share our email addresses on the Facebook page here at the end of the talk, and people can reach out to us via email as well. I'm not sure Sonia wants to get a bunch of emails from randos, but
you can also have a TikTok account and
I have to read it from your phone.
Instagram.
you'll find Sonia well represented on the TikTok as well.
Yeah, and and I've seen all the great stuff that Dr. Matthias and his team has been doing. I followed them via social media when they went to Abaco, saw some snippets from the Bimini Shark Lab. So they are doing extremely, really great things. And you're going to see that science is not boring. Science is amazing. But we have 1 minute left, and I want to read one announcement to you. This is from the Humane Society, Second Chance, Second Hand Shop. We here at the Second Chance, Second Hand Shop are so tired of the hot weather that we may have lost our minds. But that is good news for all of you shoppers out there. For the month of October, all non-tagged clothing is only $1. Yep, you heard it right. Only $1. And if it has a tag, don't worry, we still have your back. All tagged clothing is 50% off. Now is the time to come in and check out all the cute items you need for your wardrobe. And remember, While you're outfitting yourself in a stunning outfit, you can feel good that all monies raised by the shop go to helping care for the pot cakes and pot cats of Grand Bahama. We are open Wednesday through Friday, 11 to 3, and Saturday, 10 to 2. New items are put out daily, so check back often. See you there. And we're right at the 5 o'clock hour. So again, thank you all for coming out and being a part of this conversation. And Uncle Joe, you want to say something?
No, just say about 2 weeks' time there'll be.
And in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be back with a great show. So stay tuned. Like all of our Facebook and Instagram stuff so you can know when we're going to be back. Thank you. And good afternoon, Bahamas.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much. And make sure, could you get a photograph?